We're good, Lisa.
All right. All right. I'm just going to state for the recording what we are doing here today. This is the CultureWorks Community Arts Grant Panel Review. This is the public session, and it is Tuesday, May 26th at 10:30. On behalf of CultureWorks, I would like to welcome you to the 26-27 Community Arts Panel meeting. My name is Lisa Hanson. I'm the President and CEO of CultureWorks. The community arts grants provide general operating support to organizations that enrich and inspire the Dayton region through world-class performances, exhibitions, and acclaimed educational programs for all ages. The funding for this program comes from CultureWorks' community-wide fundraising initiative, the Campaign for the Arts. This campaign has a long history in our region and is ongoing at this time. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce everyone to Curtis Bowman. She is CultureWorks Director of Engagement, and she organizes the Campaign for the Arts, and it's crazy right now, right? Curtis, would you like to say a few words?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Curtis Bowman. I am your Campaign for the Arts warrior out there. The money that you are distributing with your decisions today and the people who are receiving monies today benefit from employees and workplaces across the region who donate tiny little bits of their paycheck every week to contribute to keeping our community vibrant. I appreciate your participation and their participation and the whole reciprocal process so much. Thank you so much for being here, participating and supporting the arts.
Thank you, Curtis. As Curtis indicated in her comments, CultureWorks is a steward of community funds. And in keeping with our commitment to transparency, CultureWorks relies on a grant panel of knowledgeable community members to evaluate the applications submitted for community arts grants and to make funding recommendations. At this time, I would like to introduce you to today's panel. And if each of you could just give a little wave, because you know the order is not always what I have, so everybody knows who you are. First up, we have David Sheff. He is a retired president of Sheff Enterprises, Inc., who has served on multiple boards over the years, including the Arcade Innovation Hub and the Entrepreneur Center. David is an avid arts patron and a repeat panelist for the Community Arts Grants. We are happy to have him back. Joy Johnson. Joy, give a little wave there. She is a local multidisciplinary artist who engages our community through public art. Joy is also a member of the Dayton Society of Artists Board and, like David, is a repeat panelist for the Community Arts Grants. We're grateful to have you here today. Kathleen Caffrey. Yes, there she is. The chair historian and archivist for DCA, chair of the board of DATV, and leads the Dayton chapter of Anthropological Institute of America. That's a mouthful. I almost didn't get it. She researches the history of art in Dayton and gives talks exploring historic art. We're glad to have you, Kathleen. Tamiko Stump. There she is, an arts educator, visual artist, and the director of the DSA. Tamiko has served as panelist for Montgomery County Special Projects Grant in the past, and that's, of course, through Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District. We're glad to have you, Tamiko. And Mary Fricke. Mary, give us a little wave. A recent retiree with a long history of working at Montgomery County and Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District. Mary has also served as a panelist for the Montgomery County Special Projects Grant. Mary brings her financial expertise to this review. And last but not least, our fearless leader for today, Ren R. Evans-Need. She is the Director of Grant Making and Impact here at CultureWorks, and she will serve as the panel facilitator during today's meeting. Ren?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Curtis. I really appreciate your both being here and getting us off to a wonderful start. I want to thank both of you for your leadership and for everything you do to help raise funds for this grant for the arts in Dayton. Thank you so much. And with that, I will give a quick overview here of the grant making process for today. In the weeks leading up to today's meeting, Panelists reviewed applications independently from each other on their own and completed initial scoring using an established 100-point scoring rubric. Today's meeting allows panelists the time to consider the viewpoints of their fellow panelists for the first time as they revisit their initial scores, with the opportunity to reconsider those scores before finalizing them after this public session. The public panel meeting also provides applicant organizations and community members to hear valuable and specific feedback as they look forward to improving upon this year's application. Panelists are encouraged to make specific references to the application. And so if you are the grant writer in the room, you may actually hear bits and pieces of your own writing being referred to during today's discussions. Panelists will make their final scoring determinations in a closed session held directly after today's public meeting, and applicants must receive an average score total of at least 70 points out of 100 to be eligible for funding. To determine grant amounts, final scores will be input into a funding formula, which also takes into account the number of applicants, each applicant organization's budget size, and the amount of funding available through the Campaign for the Arts, which ends at the end of June. All applicant organizations will be notified of their final scores within 5 business days of this panel meeting, and they will be notified of their funding amounts in July during our meetings that we hold with you for onboarding. Following the close of the campaign and the approval of the funding recommendations by CultureWorks Board of Trustees. At this time, I'm going to continue to shift gears here into panel facilitator. So let us begin. During the public portion of today's meeting, grant panelists will discuss 10 applications for community arts grant funding. These applications are divided into 2 categories. The general operating support category is for organizations with annual budgets between $500K and $10 million. And the community arts development category is for organizations with annual budgets between 100 and 500K. Those will be held after lunch. Those in the 500K to 10 million will be held before lunch. The purpose of today's meeting is to provide panelists with their first opportunity to hear each other's perspectives and for organizations to hear specific feedback about their applications. Attendees in the room should keep in mind that today's discussions will move quickly, we hope. However, panelists have conducted a thorough review and initial scoring of applications over the course of several weeks prior to today's meeting. To ensure that there is sufficient time to discuss all applications, panelists may not address every area of each application in their comments today, but will focus on the primary strengths and areas for improvement in the application. Applicants and other attendees may only observe the meeting and will not be permitted to interact with panelists or to provide any additional information during the review process. I know how hard it is to want to answer questions and to not be able to do that, but that is meant to keep everything objective and moving forward. CultureWorks will be providing both panelists and applicants a survey to review the application and the review process so that we can make improvements next year. Please watch for that. They will go out later this week or next week at the latest. Prior to the panel meeting, Panelists were asked to identify any conflicts of interest with applicant organizations. Panelists do not score or discuss applications from organizations with which they have a conflict, and this is the first time they will be discussing the applications as a group. The panel deliberations will proceed as follows. Each application will be discussed, as I said, for up to 15 minutes. At the beginning of each discussion, any panelist who has identified a conflict of interest will be removed from the meeting. I then call on the primary reviewer, who will speak for the first 5 minutes to initiate our discussion, presenting the primary strengths and weaknesses of the application based on the scoring categories: artistic and cultural vibrancy, evaluation and innovation, community impact and engagement, and organizational capacity. Once the primary reviewer has concluded their remarks, I will open the floor to everyone else on the panel to add comments and discuss. After all panelists have had a chance to comment, we'll draw the discussion to a close, and each panelist will have a moment to adjust their scoring and take any notes that they feel they want to take based on refreshed insight into the application. There will be a short break in the middle of the review of applications and a longer lunch break prior to the review of the community arts development applications. Once the panel has discussed every application, we will enter a closed session, at which time attendees will be asked to leave. And during this closed session, panelists will have a final opportunity to revisit discussion points and revise their scores before submitting them. As a final note, the public portion of today's panel meeting is being recorded. And our recording will be available on the CultureWorks website, cultureworks.org, within a week, as well as our YouTube playlist, Grant Applicant Support, that you can find. And that is all I have to say before we turn it over to our very first organization. That will begin at 10:45. We're a little ahead of schedule. It is 10:42, so we will pause and we will wait, Kathleen, before I will call on you as primary reviewer. We want to keep to the schedule as much as possible. So let me take a look and see. Okay. We have the relevant organizations in the room for this first session. So Kathleen, will you go ahead and start us off as the primary reviewer for Human Race Theater?
I would be happy to. In fact, I would like to open this by saying how grateful I am to be involved in this. To interact with any of these organizations is a privilege, and I am fully aware of that. So I am starting off today. I'm starting with the Human Race Theater. And I'm just going to give reflections on things I saw, things that I noticed, and hopefully assist in improvements going forward. The first thing that was found in the application was that there was a lot of evidence of outreach, of working with other organizations, of building within organizations, and of seeking to find ways to address and do good and expand into the community. This is central, of course. Art is an intrinsically a community activity. Um, there are small notes for improvement, and when the word small is used, none of this, I think, is going to be groundbreaking. Collaboration is a focus. Um, it should, and this should not be news. This should continue to be a focus. There are always more ways to collaborate. Being creatives, I'm sure this can be considered. Artistic work samples were good. Theater, however, is difficult to preserve long term. That, and that's not, I think, on purpose. It's more of an inferior experience. Moving forward to artistic evaluation, this is where the one issue that was located was really found. Um, the tool for gathering the methodology, but behind the tool for criteria, could stand to be developed more. Um, this could just be nitpicking, as methodology is something that there's a lot of experience with, but the quality of data that is located and captured does have a direct relationship on improvement and insight going forward. This, of course, is completely something that can be done. There are methodological experts that can, I think, would be happy to help with this, but it is definitely something that I definitely saw. Um, Sorry, the page refreshes every so many seconds, and I have to put it back up. Um, do do do. Okay. Um, I think I'm in the right place. Yes, I am now in the right place. Thank you for your patience. From there, there is the section on community engagement. This was generally something that I saw that was positive. Again, I think there is additional room for partnerships, collaborations, so on and so forth. Particularly in the arts, the importance of this cannot be overstated. But there is also evidence of effort in this area, so credit where it's due. This is more a very good and continue on, please do more. Organizational capacity did not show me too much of a concern. I will leave those comments to people who frankly are more financially literate than I am. Uh, I'm aware of my weaknesses. Generally speaking, this was a pleasure to read. Um, I enjoyed gaining the information, and again, I am grateful to assist this and any other organization, and wish nothing but the best going forward.
Thanks, Kathleen. Let's go ahead and open it up to other members of the panel. I have you arranged on the screen in alphabetical order, everyone, if you've noticed, by your first name, but that does not mean you need to speak in that order. Otherwise, David will get very, very worn out very quickly, I imagine. But let's go ahead and open it up to everybody on the panel, and maybe give your feedback or questions to Kathleen or other observations that you had from the application as far as unique strengths and areas for improvement.
I guess I'll just chime in with a little comment. I really appreciated the fact that their strategic planning process is still evolving, and they kind of mentioned that, which I think strengthened their application overall. Sustainability strategies tied to audience behavior, subscription retention, fundraising growth, and operational adjustments felt practical and well considered rather than purely aspirational. So, I think they had pretty good backing evidence in their grant. And I'm going to just say one more quick thing. I do agree with Kathleen. This was a pleasure to read. Like, they seemed really sincere in their writing. So I really appreciated that.
Stepping up on Tomiko's comments, I found that the clear, concise account of program development steps was really helpful. I appreciated that. It was logically presented, and to somebody who doesn't really have any background in the arts, it was very helpful. And I was also impressed with the organization's willingness to experiment with the runtime of shows. I think that shows an appreciation for or the depth of their willingness to look at things like at deeper level, and also that they presented or provided the clear results from that experiment.
I want to sort of comment on the section called the community impact I was fascinated that they came up with something called Parents' Day Out, which is seemed to really be an innovative way um, to get young family into their audience and provide daycare or childcare for their kids while they would attend theater. I'm not familiar with that being done anyplace else that I've ever been aware of. Um, I on the financial or sustainability front, my thought was they're, that they have seem to have a lot of depth in a small staff, but the and the sustainability activities seem focused. I guess I just observed that it wasn't clear that they're adequate to address their year-over-year financial losses. They do have a hole they need to fill, and just wasn't clear to me that in the sustainability part of the app that they offered enough things that would seem like they're going to address that.
I agree, David. Uh, my comments from that section, I'm just going to read it. I said that I'm relying on the Financial Review Committee for their review of financials on this one. The spreadsheet provided raised concerns for me, particularly in the revenue other line.
Same point that I thought about.
Thanks, you too. Joy, did you want to add anything? I saw your mic turn on.
Yes, I would actually like to just chime in and highlight some of the things that were already pointed out regarding the innovation through Pay What You Can Day and the Parents' Day Out. I think that that's it shows that that is a great opportunity to collaborate with the community as well as create opportunities to engage in art for all. I also there's some curiosity in like collaboration, as there's always a challenge in collaboration amongst organizations sometimes. I did notice that there was some partnerships with Playwrights Race and Seasonal Shorts, where that feedback is directly taken from the audience and the response is used to help engage with a part of the play development. So I thought that that was a great way of engaging and collaborating amongst organizations, as well as using the results to engage with the community.
Mhm.
I noted that they had some specific collaboration with Wright State's Performing Arts Program, which again, it's great for Wright State's Performing Arts Program, but probably very good for them as well.
Mhm. Kathleen, I don't know if you can remember this comment, um, but I'm going to take us back, if I may, to when you initiated our discussion and you said something about theater, and I can't. Um,
Oh, so this is a long-standing methodological issue. I actually study anthropology and the arts because, I'm a nerd. And one thing that I find in the archives and in current methodologies is that music, you can record, art, you can photograph, but the experience of theater is ephemeral and really difficult to capture and preserve long term. The experience of being in an audience and watching a performance is an incredible experience, but it really is a you had to be there kind of thing. And stepping into my personal experience, please forgive me, but as an art historian where I do research in this kind of thing, I can find photographs. I can find photographs of paintings. I can find the paintings themselves. I can find recordings of music, but I can read the reviews of a play. Um, And this applies into grants, and they give samples of work, and of course they do. I mean, that's part of the application. But the form that those samples take are a little more challenging for them because it's not something that can be easily recorded and carried forward. Even the recordings of plays we do have, because they do exist, anyone who was actually there will tell you it's nothing next to the experience of actually being present.
Mhm. Okay. I was wondering what you were trying to say at that point, and so
No,
I'm
no, that wasn't any kind of
glad I
dismissiveness
asked.
or anything like
No,
that.
no, no. I'm glad I asked because part of what you're making is a larger observation just about theater performance versus other forms of performance.
I mean,
And it's
hypothetically, we could have all the actors walk around under AI and 3D scans, but I'm not sure they'd go for that. Um,
Great. Okay. No, thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other thoughts that any of you would like to add to this discussion at this point?
I'll
We've
just
got like
add a personal note. I really enjoyed the show. That was actually my first time there on site, so I just really
okay.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. Do those of you who made the site visit want to say anything about the experience? I think that might be a good note to wrap the discussion on.
well, congratulations on your anniversary. Making it this many years is an achievement. Um, and it was really great. And I still have the champagne flute from that night because I use it to store my brushes now. So
The set was very well created and curated for the show that we went to, Hay Fever. And I also appreciated the criteria of what was discussed in Hay Fever. I thought that was like a nice um, introduction to a new view
Mm,
of sociology
mm,
and how we view each other. So I thought from the playwright perspective as well as a visual perspective, it was a great thing to experience and to attend.
and I do want to piggyback on that. I love theater regardless, but that stage set was just, I wanted to move in. It was it was warm and cozy, and I could just see myself melting on that sofa with the book. And
I agree. As a visual artist, the walls definitely look like my walls with the paper hanging and the tape all over the place. Um, it was a great experience. It was true. It was true to form.
yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for that first discussion. And let's go ahead and take the last 2 minutes for you all just to take a look at K-12 and TEJAS real quick, who's coming up, and make any final notes that you want to take for the Human Race Theater before finalizing scores. Okay, thanks everybody. Joy is our primary reviewer for K-12 and TEJAS, who is the second arts organization on our list. Joy, will you start us off?
I would love to. Thank you so much, Ren. This was a pleasure to read. And I'm just going to start off with introducing a few of the key points written out by K-12 and TEJAS, and then dig into the structure of the criteria. K-12 Gallery and TEJAS is an artist-centered visual arts center offering innovative programs for all ages in the Miami Valley. Founded in 1993 by art teacher Jerry Stennard, the organization began as the K-12 Gallery for Young People. In 2009, K-12 broadened its reach by launching TEJAS Teen Educational Joint Adult Studio to meet the growing need for teen and adult programming, becoming K-12 Gallery and TEJAS. From a small grassroots initiative to a regional arts anchor, K-12 TEJAS continues to evolve while staying true to its founding purpose, creating accessible, meaningful, and inspiring art experiences for the entire community. The applicant's programming strongly reflects its mission to create accessible, meaningful, and inspiring art experiences for the community. Through a wide range of exhibitions, classes, and engagement opportunities, the organization demonstrates a thoughtful commitment to connecting diverse audiences through visual art and cultural exchange. A significant strength is to its dedication of accessibility is through the scholarships, supporting 37% of participation, helping to reduce the financial barrier for students, including children and adults across the region. During the visit, the organization demonstrated an inclusive and welcoming environment that embraced a wide range of cultures, ages, ethnicities, and artistic skill levels. The facility offered multiple spaces for creating, displaying, teaching, and selling art, which included an in-house marketplace, supporting local artists. Observing both one-on-one and large groups during the instruction highlighted the organization's hands-on educational approach and commitment to its arts learning at all levels. The gallery space, which we also had an opportunity to see, provided an authentic exhibition experience while enforcing an arts for all atmosphere that encourages community participation and creative exploration. The organization demonstrates a responsiveness to evolving community needs through the development and rapid growth of their preschool +1 program, which is rooted in the Ohio SEL standards. This initiative approach reflects the organization's willingness to adapt programming in response to social and community changes. Their meaningful partnerships also include the Miami County Juvenile Courts with the HALO initiative and other area schools through the creative transitions, which further strengthens the organization's community impact. These collaborations demonstrate a thoughtful investment in using the arts as a tool for connection and personal development across diverse populations. Overall, the organization demonstrated a strong commitment to using the arts as a catalyst for community enrichment and socioeconomic impact. Through accessible programming, artist-led classes, opportunities for local artists, and and in-house marketplace, the organization creates meaningful pathways for creative development and economic participation with the community. Its efforts reflect an understanding of how the arts can positively influence the physical landscape of a network through their mural program and the broader social and cultural well-being of the artist through the safe space art creation. A notable strength is the organization's ability to cultivate welcoming and inclusive spaces. This approach encourages creative exploration, supports local artistic talents, and fosters community connection through shared cultural experience. As the organization continues to expand its campus and develop new partnerships, there is opportunity to further strengthen long-term strategic planning related to growth and sustainability. Establishing a clear framework for managing expansion, cultivating business partnerships, and supporting ongoing operational capacity could help further develop what remains aligned with the organization's mission and community impact goals.
Ren, you're muted.
I was just about to say that. Thank you, David.
Oh, I said thank you so much, Joy.
My pleasure.
Thank you for letting me know I was muted. Let's go ahead and open it up to the floor. And again, as you will, to add your own perspective, your own takeaways as far as the strengths and areas for improvement in this application. Other thoughts that you have maybe about what Joy said.
I will point to a point of strength that as part of the application, they mentioned they had a $250,000 grant from Ohio State, which does show that they are, not that they aren't already, but they are widely recognized as a valuable partner in children's art education. So that does speak very much not only to their character, but also to their standing.
Yeah, Joy's explanation of the application was very thorough, and I agree on all the points. But what I noticed most was that this organization is so deeply embedded in the community. And like that's what most impressed me about this application is that they got feedback, like they're like in the weeds of the community, and then they respond to the needs that, that they see. And it was very impressed with just reading about what they do, and their scope is so large, but they're still able to, manage it. And it's great. What else was I going to say? I guess that's it for now. Oh, and I really appreciate that they really kept true to their original intention of being, they're still grassroots, but they're, obviously like such a large organization now, but they still keep to the spirit on what they intended to be, which is pretty amazing in my opinion.
Tamiko, can I ask you, please, and if am putting you on the spot, you may decline, as you always know, but I'm wondering if you can give an example where because I feel like you're pointing out a real strength for the application. And I think we all learn from each other. And so I'm wondering if you can just kind of highlight an example of where you see it as kind of grassroots and how the program is responding to a community need. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I put a star next to it, so it might be important. Hopefully this makes sense. It says, the community impact and engagement section was especially strong and demonstrated a deep long-term commitment to serving the Dayton community through accessible visual art programming. K-12 TEJAS clearly understands the importance of meeting people where they are and creating opportunities for participation across a wide range of ages, abilities, and life experiences. This is where I expand a little. Programs such as Halo and Creative Transitions were especially compelling examples how art educations can support confidence building, rehabilitation, accessibility, and meaningful community connection. That's kind of piggybacking off what Joy said. And then it goes on about the scholarships. Does that clarify a little bit?
Yeah, I think the reference to Halo helps.
Yeah, that's like an amazing project. I know a little bit about it, but they actually go into schools and then they take part, So I guess that's all I have to say. If I think of something that I'll chime back in.
All right. I did. I put you on the spot.
A couple of three comments. I jump ahead of you there, Kathleen. One is actually it's just a joyful place to visit. There's so much going on, and it's just impressive that different artistic endeavors are happening in different places with different communities, from kids to adults. One jumping from that, just another note that I made is that their strategic planning or their strategic plan and their associated process are a model actually for other nonprofit organizations. Um, I, I I thought what they had documented in the process and the way that they appear to go through that um, is something that every other agency that we're looking at and anybody in general could look at as a benchmark for how that sort of thing should be done. Um, and I guess um, and it's the strength. Part of the strength of it is the extent to which it's metric based. They determine things that they're going to measure. They do measure them, and then they make changes based on the results of their measurements. Um, and a lot of things that have been looked at here seemed like they had youth education, uh, that they have a tremendous focus on that, but they also have a very active adult participation in their art classes and programs.
Thanks, David. Kathleen, you were going to say something before.
Yes, 2 points. One, to piggyback off David. I love kids. Kids are great. Kids are where everything goes from here. But I have met so many adults who wanted to do art when they were younger and then they couldn't, and then they got older and they couldn't, and that they have a place they can go to finally do the art they've been wanting to do for decades in many instances is a real gift. And I do want to be very clear, I am grateful that we have that. Um, this being said, we have an education rubrics. If you look in the application for the evaluation tool, which I get it, they work in a lot of classrooms. I would have appreciated something more structured, listing demographics, location, zip codes, age ranges, because they do work with more than kids, so on and so forth. And again, I'm kind of a nitpicker when it comes to methodology, comes with the background, but and again, I understand the classrooms are important. I'm not arguing that, but something that speaks to the wider audience that they already work with, very impressively.
To that point, I was wondering how schools are identified, when they move from into new locations, how they're identified, how they are not just identified, I guess, but solicited or whatever the right word is for that. The other point that I had is that there was I'm sorry, I'm fumfering. In the artistic innovation section, program development, and my screen is trying to play tricks, so give me a second to let me find it. My immediate reaction was that the assessment comments under program development were very helpful. And the description provided a good planning overview, which I appreciated. I did not see as much as I might have liked about assessment after completion of each program.
Mhm. Got it.
And these are not difficult things to address. As far as a problem goes, it almost isn't. It's more just, a little more paperwork.
Mhm.
I um I see that um they haven't they when we made the visit, I noticed that there was like in having one-on-one classes because we saw like some glass blowing, some pottery, right? Then they had like a full class of like painting and some stained glass and some other things. I thought that there was just like a good range of not just children but adults as well. And then like looking through the numbers, I did notice that there was a pretty even amount of participation from adults as well as children under 18 through looking at those. But it was just curious because I appreciated, there was an appreciation for like the cultivation of art culture for all varieties of people. I think it would be helpful to maybe market some of the services that they had, like they have art parties that they that told us about where you can hired them to create like an art party for a group of people for a small amount. You could rent out certain spaces and different opportunities that they have. So I think that will be just helpful in understanding like how to engage and engage the community a little more and like what services they have and how that may be able to generate as more income. From a grassroots perspective, I think just being able to like do it from the ground up. And seeing they took us on a tour to see some of the blueprints of what was expected to be. And just hearing that process of the planning was nice and it helped to understand like what really takes place in the process of building an organization, a nonprofit organization, and being able to work with the kids and the youth, the ability for the youth to teach classes. I thought was really a really great opportunity to not just cultivate art culture within the young people, but also to help them build that career, to understand like what does art career look like for an artist, and how does that help inspire and encourage them throughout their journey. I think that the program does from what I was able to experience on the visit, the program does a great job in showing that and in demonstrating that. I just think it'd be a little helpful in helping market some of those things so that way more of the region will be able to see what's happening. I think that also the landscaping improvement through the murals and engaging the youth through that participation is also a really great way to help build on skills.
Thank you so much, all of you. We are 2 minutes over. I'm always worried that we need time to warm up. I appreciate all of you for your feedback. Could you take a quick minute here just to make any final notes for yourself on K-12 and TEJAS before we shift to Muse Machine? So just a quick minute here. Any notes you need to make to yourself or a quick kind of pulling up your notes on Muse Machine and shifting gears. Thank you, Joy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Tamika, whenever you're ready, as the primary, we shall trust you to start off our discussion
Okay,
on
great.
Muse Machine, our third application today.
So, yeah, I had the pleasure of being the prime reviewer for Muse Machine. I'll go ahead and read directly from their grant application, just with their mission statement. But Muse Machine's mission to transform the lives of young people through arts happens via our vision to be a place where imagination and inspiration meet teaching and learning. Muse is an arts education organization that serves students and their teachers year-round through arts integrated residencies, dynamic in-school and out-of-school performances, professional quality student performance opportunities, and experiential student-centered professional development for educators. So they've been around for 44 years. Muse Machine has encouraged students to make the performing and visual arts a vital part of their lives and to develop a long-lasting commitment to support the arts. Engaging with Muse offers students and teachers an aha moment and learning as they discover a new wide range of cultural experience and explore their own creative paths. Through Muse, Students begin life journeys as art makers, learners, patrons. Teachers engage with outstanding professional artists and use the arts to create innovative and energized classrooms. Families create shared memories and school connections, and the region's artistic community is strengthened. So I had the pleasure of going to one of their performances, and it was the most warm and welcoming experience I had. Like you went in there and there were so many families, and just the support system was amazing. They ran out of chairs, but it was so busy, they brought them in. So that's just about the site visit. I prepared a little thing to read, so I'll go ahead and get to it. The main strength of the Muse Machine application is the depth, breadth, and intentionality of its community impact. The organization demonstrates an exceptionally strong understanding of how arts education can function as both an artistic and educational tool, and nearly every section of the application reflects direct alignment between mission, programming, evaluation, and long-term strategy. The scale of impact is especially impressive, serving approximately 65,000 students and 600 teachers annually across 154 schools and 9 counties through residencies, performances, workshops, professional development, and student productions. Another major strength is how deeply integrated stakeholder feedback is throughout the organization's planning and program development process. The application consistently demonstrates responsiveness to students, educators, artists, and community partners in ways that feel authentic and measurable rather than performative. Muse Machine clearly understands the educational environment it is serving and adapts program accordingly. Strong examples include the district-wide partnership with the Dayton Public Schools, the Dayton Funk Legacy Programming, the redesign of the Summer Institute around regional artistic identity, and the development of programming specifically addressing student disengagement, device dependence, and social emotional learning. The application also demonstrates an unusually strong balance between artistic vibrancy and educational relevance. Muse Machine is simply not presenting arts experiences to the students. It is embedding arts learning into the curriculum, critical thinking, cultural identity, and creative exploration. That was a big point for me, and I really, they do a good job at that. The organization shows clear intentionality around interdisciplinary learning, accessibility, and long-term arts engagement. Evaluation methods are robust, data-informed, and consistently tied back to the program involvement, improvement, and measurable outcome. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the organizational stuff. Organizationally, the application is extremely strong. Muse Machine demonstrates sophisticated strategic planning, strong governance practices, long-term financial stability, and thoughtful sustainability planning. The organization's nearly 8 million net assets and substantial endowment support provide a significant level of institutional stability. The application also demonstrates clear awareness of current educational and funding challenges while outlining realistic strategies for adaptation and growth. I'm almost done, guys. The main weakness of the application is the sheer scale and scope. Sometimes it feels overly dense and overly, sometimes it was hard to read because there's so much in it. And the compelling narrative was it wasn't shown through with like the institutional writing. It was just the writing of the grant was hard for me personally. Because there is so much programming and data presented, some of the emotional or artistic storytelling can become secondary to operational detail. And I think that's about it.
Thank you, Tamiko.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That is the hard balance of grant writing, is the data you need, and the evidence you need to present and the story you want to tell. It's a hard balance in grant writing. Thank you for that feedback. Let's go ahead and open it up to the floor. If everybody else can share your thoughts on this application or your visit.
I wanted to give kudos for the evaluation tool. That was a well-structured, well-designed, full marks. It was a pleasure to see. Well done. And it just whoever designed that, give them a pat on the back or buy them a sandwich or something.
I am aligned with you, Kathleen. The thought process and the evaluation tool was you could tell like they really took some time. It was very extensive. The components were like very true to structure for an analysis as well as an improvement for results. So there's a direct impact that you'll be able to see through that evaluation tool. And I'm sure it did take a while to come up with that from a collaborative perspective through that organization. So it is nice to see how they work together to utilize those skills to help impact the audience through their programming and the thoughtfulness that they put into it.
I particularly like the inclusion of quantified results on the surveys and the initiatives throughout the application. I found that very helpful.
Mary's like, give me the data.
So my favorite piece of this application was in the program development, where they had an offering called for kids called Heads Up, Devices Down, and basically designed to build communication skills, active listening, and peer connection. I love the idea that they actually campaign for device independence from kids having their heads planted in their phones, and I thought that was very innovative and a really interesting program.
I would actually like to speak to that because they aren't the first group or the only group by any measure to do that. That speaks to a wider challenge of getting people away from their devices and into actual physical people community, which is a challenge not only for this organization, but for the arts in general. So that challenge has been identified and is being approached, to me, is a very good thing.
And to piggyback off what you guys are saying, just to dig into like the artistic collaboration section, they talked about the development of the professionals as well, to help enhance the learning process for the youth that they are impacting as well. And I think that is so important to continue that growth and development through us as the leaders and the example through the adults for the children to see and how that message is consistent across the board. I think that's really nice to see how they continue the improvement through that collaboration and innovation.
And if I could just piggyback one last comment, I know we're getting to about 11:30. I love that there was an art and science event. One of my pet peeves is that everyone lives in silos and no one talks to each other or makes friends, and it boggles my mind. Art and science can absolutely and should absolutely be friends with each other. So that they're spearheading those kinds of activities, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
On the site visit, I was so impressed. I attended the same one that Tamika did. I was so very impressed, having been an English major, I guess. um, at the time, they were teaching things like what prepositions meant through dance, through song. It was fabulous because it was so curriculum specific. At the same time, these kids are going to remember those songs and that dance, and so they will understand prepositions. And I found that amazing. So I was very pleased with the site visit. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree. That was like mind blowing what they were doing. It really was. So, and the kids had so much fun doing it and they will remember it forever.
So, yeah, talk about mnemonics.
Yeah. There were people in the audience, like their grandfather, one of the grandfathers sat next to me and he was like doing it too. And, he was telling me that his granddaughter would practice at home and, they would sing, I got the warm and fuzzies.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did too. It was my favorite site visit.
So, Tamiko, you got the story and the warm feelings you were looking
Yes,
for.
I did. Yeah, I'm like,
Good.
I'm more out for the warm and fuzzy. So it was a very, very pleasurable experience.
All right. We have officially run out of time for Muse Machine. So if we could take a quick minute here again for you all to kind of jot some quick notes for yourself, fresh thoughts about this application before finalizing scores, and get yourself reoriented toward our fourth um, organization to review, Springfield Symphony Orchestra. We'll take just a little moment of silence here to make that shift. And David, when you are ready to initiate our discussion as the primary reviewer for Springfield Symphony Orchestra, please do. David, you're muted. I'm so sorry. I just noticed you were speaking. Yeah, my bad. Can you just, David, just click on the mic at the bottom of your screen in the left corner so that we can hear you.
There.
Ah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I'm sorry we missed all of that.
Yes, my bad. Well, so again, we're talking about the Springfield Symphony Orchestra Association, and the mission of that organization is um, to enrich the lives of the people in Springfield and the surrounding region by presenting quality performance of symphonic music and jazz music and providing excellent education programs. So I think the thing to note at the outset is that we've seen multiple disciplines and some of the other things, but they have um, two um, uh, two two musical approaches that they're performing and that they're do that activity with the within Clark County and the region around. My sort of summary of the observation about this organization, and then I'll come back to the details, is that the Springfield Symphony Orchestra and Springfield Symphony Jazz Orchestra are major contributors to the cultural life of the Springfield area. The application documents a disciplined approach to program development and community engagement with noteworthy integration or recognition rather for the organization's accomplishments. They have solid revenue documented and a substantial endowment. So their sustainability, I believe, is assured. Kind of going back to the various metric dimensions, artistic and cultural vibrancy. This quote from the application is an excellent summary of the artistic programming. Our symphony and jazz orchestra do more than present performances. We enrich lives, strengthen community bonds, and contribute to a more vibrant, inclusive, and inspired cultural landscape. The application documents a number of ways in which those things are impacted, and I'm going to move on since I fumbled the beginning of our conversation. Artistic evaluation and innovation. Again, they do this very well. Innovative artistic innovation is based on a balanced framework of qualitative and quantitative criteria grounded in excellence, innovation, and audience impact. That's, again, a quote from their app. Given empirical feedback from stakeholders, the organization addresses both program content and delivery. They had an example of adjusting performance start times based on audience preference. It was really an interesting example of addressing program delivery and engaging with their audience, their community. The community impact. Well, just one observation, I guess. Let me just finish with again, they're focused on access, youth engagement, and community partnerships. What they have stated seems well thought out, and should expand the student element of the audience for the orchestra. A question would be if that also is going to address their adult audience as well, because they focus their very much in that. When we get to the organizational capacity, the strategic planning efforts noted in the application are focused on engaging and expanding the student audience. My question after reading this is, what efforts to sustain and expand other elements of the audience community are employed? They literally, in the application at least, focused it on their student engagement. And I've had the same experience with some other things that we've looked at. It's not clear to me that for a performing arts organization, bringing in grade school, high school age audience is going to, in fact, expand your ticket buying audience and donor patrons. So that's a question about the application. I'm not sure that's really a comment about how they actually do work, but that's what the application said. So I think I would yield the floor here at the moment and see what anybody else has to say.
Thank you, David. Let's go ahead and open up our discussion about the Springfield Symphony Orchestra's application for the Community Arts Grant to the rest of the panel.
I appreciated that the strategic plan recognized, in my mind, that the future of the arts depends on cultivating an appreciative future audience. And I felt that was evidenced by their outreach to younger groups.
If I may, I also want to point out that they work with people in Clark, Greene, Champaign, and Madison counties, which is not a small territory. So I give them a lot of credit for reaching out to areas that, frankly, probably need the exposure and the access. because, I love Dayton, but we do get kind of in our own head here a little bit, and reaching out's not a terrible idea.
I agree. I think that it's important for us to make sure that we stay engaged through the arts for all. I think that their ability to show the impact that they have for students and cultivating that art experience for students to grow and develop that cultural lens is important. I believe that it has been evident that adults have the opportunity to structure their lives the way that they desire to see fit based on their circumstances. However, youth do not have that opportunity to create that. And so I think showing this ability to create the structures and the programming through the classroom that extends beyond the classroom and into the teachers, I think that shows like a tremendous ability to show a way to break down barriers and introduce new like cultural experiences. And then I think it's up to the adults to take the initiative to help expand that experience and cultivate that experience through those opportunities of showing, the art. I do believe that engaging in community activities and experiences is important for us all to be able to utilize arts for everyone. Like I said, I just think it's easier for us as adults to find those opportunities versus the children. There is opportunity to expand on ways to cultivate programming for adults. Maybe, some classes or different things that may be able to be structured to help expand some programming through the arts, through adult programming. But I think that they do a great job of demonstrating arts for all throughout the entire structure of the grant.
Just for the record, my observation is not that they don't cultivate an adult audience, but that their application focused uh, on uh, on youth education.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't something that said some things that you just alluded to, Joy, about how they capitalize on that to expand their adult and patron community.
It was just in the grant, because I didn't actually, what I had as a strength was their youth program. But when you said that, David, I was like, there's no mention, not even a mention of like adult programming. So it's just something for us to think about, that I'm going to think about like for the next couple minutes at least.
Yeah. Speaking
Well,
to,
I think it's really fantastic. I'm personally more of a jazz than a symphonic music person, and so that they in Springfield, Ohio, have formalized the structure where they have a resident jazz orchestra that performs regularly is really cool.
it really is. Speaking to the structure of the grant application, I appreciated the succinct overview of the sustainability model, including the mention of fundraising and the other events, and also the informative discussion of foundation fundraising program.
Yep.
I would like to point out two things. Firstly, while I do agree that a focus on development in adult education would be a very good thing, kids do have parents and aunts and uncles. So by reaching the kids, you do reach the adults to some degree. The second thing is one thing that I really stood out is that they're supporting their local infrastructure. One thing that you'll read in the grant is that they regularly work with institutions like the local libraries. And libraries, particularly in this moment, as much as arts organizations also need support and community. So I did appreciate that they're integrating and working with those systems as well.
Thanks, everybody. We have made it to 11:44. So you have But we also have a break that starts at 11:45. So we will take this minute and the next 15 to have a little break here. When we return, we will review Dayton Arts Institute, DCDC, DPAA, and Discover Classical in that order, and look forward to those discussions about those applications. But for right now, let's take a 15-minute break. Panelists, if you can mute yourselves and turn off your camera, that would be wonderful, but do not leave the room. I will call you back when it is time. Greetings, everyone. It is officially noon. Panelists, could you please return? Welcome back. There's Kathleen. Hi, everybody. Let us begin our second batch of applications here. Again, welcome everybody who's in the room, applicants and members of our community. The next 4 applications which we will be discussing, 15 minutes apiece, are Dayton Arts Institute, DCDC, DPAA, and Discover Classical in that order. We'll have a primary reviewer who will speak for about 5 minutes about each application, and then we will open it up to the floor. Please keep in mind as well that this is the first time that the panel is actually talking about these applications, and so this is meant to be a true discussion where they are hearing alternative points of view and perspectives before they reconsider their commentary and their initial scores on the application. So with that, let me open it up. Mary, you are the primary reviewer for DAI. Could you please start off our conversation?
Thank you. Yes. I think we are probably all familiar with DAI. I remember when we moved to Dayton, one of the first things that I noticed was their building. It became a landmark. I'm not going to go deeply into their history, but I would like to read one part of the history commentary that they provided. Among the 10% of museums accredited nationally by the American Alliance of Museums, DAI makes its facility, collections, and resources accessible to the public through a wide range of dynamic, innovative programming. Each year, DAI presents a full calendar of high-quality exhibitions, educational programs, tours, and events. Offerings include art classes, self-guide-led tours, artist and scholarly lectures, music concerts, Oktoberfest, the region's largest festival, Jazz and Beyond concert series, and curatorial conversations. I wanted to read that simply because it indicates the breadth of offerings by DAI and the fact that their focus is much broader than what I normally think of when I think of an art museum. Some of the things that caught my attention as I was doing this was, again, the breadth, but just the diversity of the offerings in this that they noted in their past year with 3 special and 6 focus exhibits, all of which hit a different audience. So they would appeal to different segments of the community. I was also impressed. Sorry, I'm scrolling. With the informative discussion they gave of the considerations and constraints in the artistic program development program. It was pointing out the constraints, budgetary and others, was a new revelatory perspective for me and really helped me understand some of the perspectives that they have to consider as they're going through their planning process. Well, I was impressed by the strategies that they discussed. I felt that I would like to know more about the goals and measurements for community engagement. they have a high percentage of underrepresented artists, and that's very commendable. At the same time, I wonder if it risks disappointing visitor expectation in other areas. However, I think the breadth of their offerings probably compensates for that and helps them develop a balance point. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more articulation of this in the written commentaries from them. I particularly liked they gave a long list of long meaningful list of artistic evaluation and innovation notes, and that was very helpful. One or two of them that resonated particularly were engaging with multiple generations of learners and learning styles, and reflecting the diverse lived experiences, specialization, and strengths of the staff and exhibitors, as well as their audience and in the community. I'm not quite sure where I am on time, but I would also like to say that I appreciated the stated values of socially responsible fiscal managers pledged to environmentally and conscious practices, as well as the incorporation of business-like workplace measures. I found that this was not quite unique, but not always something that is part of a presentation. Just the business-like view that they have to take in order to be sustained. And that's all of my comments at this time.
Thank you, Mary, for getting us started. I really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and open it up to the rest of you at this point. Other comments that you want to make as far as highlighting strengths or areas for improvement in the application, or questions, comments that you have to kind of emphasize maybe some of the points Mary made. Let's go ahead and open it up.
Well, they in the first section, they made mention. I think you've mentioned it as well, Mary, that the 3 special exhibitions, 6 focused expositions, expensive opportunities for patrons to visit, various ways to draw. That they had a specific collaboration with Wright State. I mentioned this earlier, but again, I think that's, and also the Modern College of Design is extending what they're doing. They focus their curation on the curation staff, the curators, into a picking up on that underserved community as well. And so I share your thoughts about whether that's necessarily going to be an ultimate draw, but it also is addresses their sustainability issue. One particular thing, I looked at their artistic evaluation tool, and it's certainly very comprehensive. I guess I would be concerned that it also would be intimidating to a lot of people to undertake to address that survey form. That I would hope that they might be able to find a way to get to the information they're looking for with that is a less challenging survey instrument. And they have a sustainability issue for sure. They're they have a substantial revenue shortfall in their in the P&L that they provided. So hope that they are able to step up what they're going to do. A critical success factor for continuing successful operation is the stated focus on growing patron revenue sources and government, institutional, and other grant revenue sources. That's a critical success factor for sure.
I agree, David. And that was one of the times that I thought, well, the Finance Review Committee is going to have to deal with this because I can't get into it. There was too much I wanted to say, and at one time my job was to analyze financial statements, and I didn't want to get into a deep dive on this. I didn't feel that that was my place, but I agree there are significant challenges to them.
Thank you both. So just for the benefit of everyone in the room, I just want to mention that the FRC is a finance review committee that CultureWorks employs outside of the panel, which has more comprehensive knowledge about finances. It's a lot to go through and to ask people to go through an audit and what have you. So that happens separately. And then is taken into account with the final scores. So, yeah, thank you.
I'll just chime in.
Okay. To the group.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm done.
No, I just didn't know if you were done. I just want to say something really quick. So I appreciate that they're reaching out to the community, like when they're working with AVAG, and they were able, like, especially for the AVAG and then the James Pate and the Curtis Barnes, they were able to see beyond, just one specific thing. And I think that's one of their strengths is to, coordinate these exhibitions where they feel more holistic than a single, like, one-off thing. And I don't know, I just want to commend them for doing something like that. I mean, it was very impressive. So yeah, and I'll just say one other thing. I really appreciated the community report at the end. I think that's what it was called. That was just a nice way to, because this was a lot of information. It was just a nice way for me personally to look through all their stats. So I appreciated that inclusion.
I'm going to chime in with my peers and say that there was strong quantitative as well as qualitative data that supported like a measurable analysis for where their strategic planning directly impacted the results that they were looking for. I think it talked about how the Arts for All Days increased its goal by 10%. Through the community engagement and expansion of that. So it'd be interesting to continue to see the growth and expansion of that strategic planning through that collaboration. I do agree that it is I'm not very highly educated with truly scrutinizing the financials, but based on what I'm looking at, the operating expenses are definitely a challenge and something to totally speak to for the growth and sustainability of where DAI is projected to be.
I feel like there's a few things I want to put in. The first one is I actually didn't mind the evaluation tool. It was a little bit of an effort, but it is an end of the big project placement, not an individual placement. And in that regard, I think it made sense. The second is to speak to a wider challenge that the DEI has been dealing with since 1919, so hardly a new thing, where they balance the more popular exhibits, the Van Goghs, the Matisses, and so on and so forth, with a almost dual role as a local art museum. So they're simultaneously an encyclopedic museum and a local art museum at the same time. And this is something that, for example, the Springfield Museum of Art doesn't have to tackle with as much. They're largely just a local art museum. the DEI has to kind of be both. And this gives them a very difficult balance that they have to keep going forward, but also a very important one because a lot of local art history is tied in with DEI, with local artists working with that organization. So it's not an easy fit to make. I will also point out, and I don't think this is a secret, is that they recently changed directions and leadership. So we're kind of catching them at a in-between moment, which all of us have been in in-between moments. They're not generally our finest. And if you read the document, they are pretty open about that, that they're working on where they're going and what they're doing. And no, this is not, the best time, but they do need support going forward.
One
Thanks, Kat.
observation, sort of maybe a compliment to that, is that the the staff bios that they provided are um, extraordinarily impressive in terms of the both academic backgrounds and the professional expertise and experiences that the staff have. I, to the point that a regional museum has that portfolio of PhDs, relevant PhDs, is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Tamika will make fun of me for this, and it's completely fair for her to do so. I literally have an hour and a half talk on the history of the DEI that I give. Um, they are an incredibly impressive organization, past and present, but their mission is incredibly challenging. And I give them a lot of credit for the work that they do to work towards it.
I agree that they are a long-term, very impressive organization, and I feel that they will meet their challenges and go forward successfully. I also agree that we've caught them at a bad time, both with the broader financial challenges that all of arts are facing right now, and this moment in their transition. So it's a particularly, may I use the term, perfect storm for them.
They're still recovering from the pandemic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Take a minute here, and not to rush us or anything, but we are just a little behind time.
Got it.
I'm not worried about it. I just want you to kind of have that. Yeah. So let's take just a minute here for you to take any additional notes that you want to take about DAI, things that you can come back to a little later when you have more time during our closed session at the end of all this to kind of rethink some of your feedback and your scoring for DAI. And then take some time to shift your mindset toward DC-DC. And I'll move into silence here for a little bit so that we can do that transition. Okay, Kathleen, whenever you are ready, as the primary reviewer, can you please get us started?
I am
our
happy and proud to.
DC-DC. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So since we're a touch behind, not too bad, I'll just, hit the high points that I witnessed in reading this. In a collaboratory measure, DC-DC was honestly a pleasure to read. Um, one of the things one of the things that we look for as reviewers in this is how many other groups and how many other organizations and systems that these applicants work for and collaborate with. DC-DC has that covered in spades. I'm not worried about that. Um, Honestly, whatever coffee they're drinking, I'd like to find out the brand because I need that kind of energy. Um, Following that, and I realize this is something of a wheelhouse, I was impressed with the methodology or the feedback form. And I've mentioned this a few times. Good information means a better chance at good outcomes. And that they do have a feedback form that seemed to be well designed and considered does mean that they have that going for them going forward to figure out what will actually be beneficial. So, very happy to see that. Always a wonderful thing. This is something that is done by a few people, but I love that it's here too. Um, Incorporating with systems does include education, community, and commitment. Again, whatever caffeine they use, they work with schools, they work with organizations, they work with libraries, they work with theaters. Um, and that's exactly what we want to see because the arts does not work in silos. The arts works in a community, and they have fully embraced that, which I was very happy to see. Um, the one thing I did point out, and this is, I don't think so much a contradiction, it's just something to note. This is one of the youngest organizations here today. And as anyone here is aware of, when you have a younger organization, finding your footing and finding your stability can take a minute. So, that there's challenges from that, plus COVID, plus art funding, plus everything else we're dealing with right now. It's really not a great situation for all involved. But all this being said, their actions, their activities, collaborations with the community, outreach to various other groups, this was a positive read, and I am optimistic going forward.
Thanks, Kathleen. Let's go ahead and open it up to the floor. For those of you who would like to add your commentary focused on strengths of the application as well as areas of improvement, or adding emphases or questions behind some of the things you've heard Kathleen share.
I'll just say that I'm surprised that they're actually one of the youngest, or they are the youngest organization that we're reviewing, because reading this, they have a maturity about them. Like they're well established now. I think that, I was shocked when you said that because they have such depth to their thinking and programming, and it just shows a maturity level that, makes them such a great organization. So thank you for pointing that out, Kathleen.
They are probably better known internationally than they are domestically.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very common Daytonian experience, by the way. A lot of our artists have bigger names outside the city than they do here, which I'm not sure what can be done about that, but I see it as something to be done about.
I think their collaboration is interesting. I've had occasion to attend the performance that they did with the Philharmonic, with the Dayton Philharmonic and the Dayton Ballet, which was a very amazing performance. And just a week or so ago, ended up attending the Bach Society's performance, and there was DC dancing for the second half of the program. So um, they're everywhere.
No, I do acknowledge that, like a lot of people, finances are hard on a lot of folks, and that is a reality. Um, but again, I was generally impressed. So
Their energy is amazing. The one area of the application that I would have maybe structured a little bit differently were I doing it was the community impact. It's an important evaluation tool, but it said a lot about artists and related art communities, but not a lot about community and the broader community. And I would have liked to have seen some additional information with that.
I think the Something else that I was favorably impressed by is the 9 steps in their artistic program development. Um, is a is a talking about methodologies here. I mean, it's a methodology that could be repeated. It's a recipe for how to design a program while engaging all your stakeholders. Well done.
And to speak to Mary's point, and this is partly on culture work side, when you have 200 to 300 words per response, if you want to divide outreach and community, that might give more space to explore additional aspects, just brainstorming going forward. Because you are right. I mean, and I don't know if, maybe that's a shortfall area or, they had 300 words to fill on that particular space and that's what they could fit, which is entirely possible.
I just want to say that the development of the strategic plan was thoroughly articulated, and you can see that there was some additional strategic planning that was involved, and the growth um, of the organization in general through that development of the strategic capacity building for a sustainable future initiative. Just being on the panel in prior years, it's good to see the development and growth from that prior structure and seeing it articulated here through the new grant process here. So there's just some strength.
And they're hyperactive. They work with everyone.
I think they actually make mention that their origins are in the African American community in Dayton, but their outreach, their collaboration is going to take them to uh, whatever, a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi approach. So I think that's a good thing. I agree with the strategic plan was there are 3 phases as well articulated, and it makes good sense. And they're in phase 2 of that. Um, it's another one of these situations where we look at the financial implications and um, revenue projections showing a shortfall in 26 is concerning in terms of how they get to where they want to go in this phase 2 and how they get to phase 3.
I guess the only thing I would add, because we talk about how all these activities are good for DCDC. I'd also like to point out that these collaborations that they do also provide value and service to the people they work with. Um, so you want to talk about, producing value and producing community, they are doing it for themselves, but also through these collaborations for a lot of other people. And that is something that I find highly admirable.
I agree, Kathleen. Just to quote a little bit of the application in the artistic innovation and collaboration section, they stated, as our country struggles to find ways to authentically champion and cultivate holistic representation and belonging, DCDC continues to be, as it has for 57 years, a powerful conduit for fostering and showcasing these values in action. So I think that everything that we stated today was really implied through that statement.
Thank you. I think that is a good note to kind of wrap up the feedback on DCDC. Unless anybody has anything they feel is really pressing, please take this minute to kind of jot down your new thoughts on DCDC's application, and then we will shift our focus to DPAA. In just 1 minute here. Okay. David, whenever you are ready, as the primary reviewer for Dayton Performing Arts Alliance, could you please initiate our discussion?
Sure. I'll try to do it with the microphone turned on this time. Uh, so we're reviewing the Dayton Performing Arts Alliance, and as we probably all know, this is an enterprise that is a consolidation of separate organizations that supported the Philharmonic Orchestra, the Dayton Ballet, and the Dayton Opera. And so they have some challenges in terms of bringing that all together. Just reading from the beginning of their mission statement, the Performing Arts Alliance fundamental conviction is that the arts are for everyone. Our driving purpose is to inspire as many people as we can of every generation and background to fall in love with the arts. First element of our strategic platform is to produce unique, memorable, artistic, and social experiences. The second is to make the arts universally accessible. It's our burning imperative to build and expand our audiences, and we will ensure that everyone is welcomed and included in our invitation. We're going to talk more before this is finished about the expanding audiences and how critical that is for what they're trying to do. In the artistic and cultural vibrancy section, there was a quote that I thought was interesting, is that their vision going forward is they want to bring musicians on stage with dancers and vocalists. They are uniquely capable of doing that as against practically any other organization in the country and maybe in the world as far as that's concerned. And that's a leading activity. So only in Dayton is another quote from that first section, has become the North Star of the DPAA's artistic planning. Creating programming that leverages Dayton's unique capability to stage events incorporating orchestra, ballet, and opera must be a draw for increased audience and donor support. An example of consolidation as well as their collaboration was a program called Rhythm in the City, a powerful example of the integration of the art forms and picking up on our funk origins in Dayton. Artistic evaluation. One thing that they noted that they did, which I thought was useful, is they had expanded the scope of their program advisory committee, so it is now composed of board, staff, and community members to provide input and advice to the artistic directors. And so anyway, that represents a comprehensive team approach to program development. They had a more limited advisory committee organization before. Just with respect to that section, the other thing is to say is that the artistic directors are demonstrably world class. We are blessed in Dayton to have people of the caliber of leadership that they have. They're going to have a new opera director going forward, but they're really amazing. Community impact. Another organization that is, looking to try and be local artist focused. And with respect to the community impact, they have multiple youth arts education programs. So they're reaching out for that next generation or next generation of audience and patrons. When it comes to organizational capacity, they actually identify that 26 and 27, fiscal years 26 and 27 represent a repositioning. And with respect to organizational sustainability, their audience growth historically is a challenge. They actually document that in their application. They also make note of the fact that they are engaged in collective bargaining with the members of the orchestra and with the ballet's representation as well. So EPA is confronting a difficult financial situation as demonstrated by the repositioning in the 26-27 artistic programs. Not clear to me that offering fewer programs and fewer performances may save money, but it's not clear that it will lead to audience and donor growth. They, during this last year, dropped 2 programs with the Symphony Orchestra, and that patrons are aware of that. People who are attending were aware of that. So my thought here is that the transition, the bridge to a new strategic framework, which is their terminology, going forward, is going to be critical to sell that new strategic framework and new vision to patrons, performers, and staff if they're going to grow this. My background a little change management. They have a change management sales job to accomplish what their objectives are. I think that's my opening comments.
Yeah, I would agree that entirely. I understand why they're trimming, and I understand that they're trying to consolidate. But every time you trim, that comes with the trade-off. So it's not that I question it. It's that, we'll see if maybe that comes back later. Situations change. I do understand that. The only real major point that I was able to find is that their demographic and feedback form was a little simplistic. But again, as far as things that are hard to fix, this is like 2 out of 10. It's not a hard thing to revisit. I was blown away. This is another group that just has an unreasonable amount of energy and works with an amazing number of people. And it speaks to a wider concern, that kind of a pattern I see across the entirety of these applications, where you have people doing things that should be more effective and should work better, and et cetera, et cetera. And there's just a challenge in achieving reach, in actually making contact. And that is a challenge not for a organization, but from what I can tell from most, if not all of the organizations we're going to see. It's just a challenging time to be a physical arts organization in the current day. And if anyone has insights on how to fix that, I would be thrilled to have that conversation.
Thanks, Kathleen.
I think we have sort of our light under a basket. I came to the Dayton area 31 years ago from Los Angeles. And I've shared with people, over the years that I lived in Los Angeles for 20 years before I moved to come here. Los Angeles did not have a resident ballet company anytime during that period of time. They would have Joffrey or somebody show up, and that would be your ballet fix in Los Angeles. We have a world-class ballet company that's been here forever. We have a symphony orchestra that is world-class. It's been here forever. The opera program stages major operas, and our community doesn't realize what we have. That's a huge marketing challenge for this and other organizations.
There's more I can say on that particular aspect, but that seems like not focused on this organization, so I'll keep to this topic. But this is absolutely something to put a pin in to revisit later.
Tamika.
I just have something quick. They are doing something really large and very different, and it is hard to get these separate legacy organizations to work. But I think they're doing a good job. And if moving forward, I would maybe even try to integrate them more. Um, I don't know. It's just a hard situation that they're in. I do appreciate, you know, the combination of all the organizations, but I know there's probably some like growing pains, and I think they're shifting, and they really need to think about what they're doing. And I agree with both David and Kathleen. It is unfortunate that they did have to cancel some programming. So hopefully they'll be able to regroup. But I was really impressed with their application though, all in all. Like I think they're in a good spot to move forward. So I guess that's it.
Okay.
Well, in step one of anything like this, and this is not the first organization like this, is to acknowledge where you are and what you need to do to move forward. And I don't think any of us can claim they haven't, made a solid effort to do that.
Joy, was your mic on?
Yes, I was just going to say that their ability to respond directly to the needs of what the community is saying is evident in their programming through their special events like the studio. I don't know how to pronounce that properly, Galibi, and Symphony Masala. I think that representation was great, was a great way to respond to the feedback that they received in order to be able to appeal to the greater region in the community.
Mary, did you want to add anything?
I tend to agree with everything everybody said. I think the fact that they so specifically articulate their challenges speaks to the recognition. And a lot of organizations get into trouble because they don't want to recognize their position. And so I give them great credit for recognizing it, for exploring it, for trying to understand it, for articulating it. I found the application to be very educational, very helpful, and very detailed. I felt very good about them, and I think that reflected well on the organizational structure, which is imperative to have in order to meet such challenges. So all in all, I felt very good about it, even though they have significant challenges.
But and just to echo what you said, Mary, one of the things that I think was start reading this, and it was a surprise, was how explicitly they articulated their dilemma. They did a great job of articulating what their capabilities are, but they also were very candid about what's going on.
Yeah,
and
they didn't try to put any kind of masking or less attention on it at all. They just said it out front, and that made me feel much better about it.
I agree. I think that speaks to the strength of the leadership in the organization. And I also want to talk a little bit about the visitation that I had an opportunity to attend. David has my observation lens opened to identify like where can we find more adult programming. And so in this, there was heavy information regarding like student programming, but in the visitation, there was an opportunity where the conductor, there was a break. And the conductor gave the audience a chance to come up on stage and experience the sound of the orchestra as they were playing. And it was like really exciting. Half the crowd went on stage. So that was really nice. That was a really nice experience from an adult perspective and also from a visual perspective to see that experience and be able to know like how connected the art the conductor was with the audience and how he wanted us to experience that too.
If I could just put a word in here at the end, this is a challenging time for arts in general. I don't want to end things on any kind of negative note. That is not earned here. The work and effort and heart that they are putting into their collaborations, their teamworks, of having the wisdom to know they have to work together, and the sheer creativity that they are showing is highly deserving of praise. And this is a challenging time to be an art organization, no matter who you are. And they are absolutely stepping up to that plate to answer that call. So while it is realistic to talk about, yes, there are challenges, let's also give credit for just the sheer amount of hard work being done here.
Yeah, and I
Amen.
think your compliment is very obvious in how they structured the way that they wrote their collaboration in the artistic collaboration piece. Thank you for that, Kathleen, for identifying that.
We are out of time, everyone. David, do you want to say one last thing as primary reviewer and also have the last comment? Or do you feel that this conversation has touched all the notes?
Um, I'm praying that they're successful with selling going forward. They're going to have to sell internally and make sure everybody's on the same page. They're going to have to sell to their existing patrons, and then they're going to have to sell to the expanded audience. And many years ago, I attended a training program, and um, one of the things I took away from it was an expression that said, "Nothing happens till somebody sells something." And
Oh God, David. On that note, you want us to close?
yes,
Oh my gosh. Everybody, thank you for all of your feedback on DPAA. Please make your final notes here based on the observations of your colleagues here on the panel. And then we will shift to our final of the four before our lunch break, Discover Classical. I think there were 2 points that were made in our last conversation about DPAA that were larger than any one organization. And that has to do with just the moment we are in right now, as well as um, the amount of, I wouldn't necessarily use the word sale, but I understand what you're meaning, David. There has to be a buy-in, for all of these organizations that works internally and is mission driven as much as it is understanding of the actual economics of where we're all at right now. And I mean the word economics beyond just the dollar numbers, but obviously the dollar numbers are a big part of that. I think of economics too as collaboration. That is an economic system, right? And we tend not to credit the arts as having an ecosystem, and yet here we are talking about collaboration every day. So I think, what I want to say right now, and I'm speaking as a representative of CultureWorks right now, is that CultureWorks absolutely recognizes this moment. And I don't think any applicants and former grantees need to worry that it is not recognized because we find ourselves in that moment right along beside you at CultureWorks. And so I know we're all feeling that. Um, Panel, I don't want you to feel like you have to fix all the things for these applications. That's not your job, We all know what context within which people are writing. And I don't want to lose sight of the individuality of these organizations as we get kind of focusing on that big picture. Let's just hold that big picture and do our best to kind of return our focus to the organizations and what they're doing um, artistically as well as financially, because we do need to have that conversation. I'm not saying let's avoid it, but let's Yeah. Let's go ahead and begin our conversation of Discover Classical, otherwise known as WDPR. And that was my best, Thank you. Thank you. Joy, you are the primary reader here. Would you please initiate our discussion of Discover Classical?
Absolutely. I'm going to start by highlighting some organizational details and briefly go through some of the strengths and opportunities that I saw. Discover Classical is a nonprofit public radio station for Miami Valley region whose mission is to celebrate and advance classical music and define arts using multiple technologies to enrich the lives of our listeners. Our vision is to use multiple platforms to break down boundaries surrounding classical music, geographical, technological, cultural, and perceived, building community among music lovers and guiding them to greater knowledge, appreciation, and enjoyment of classical music. This organization demonstrates a strong cultural vibrancy through more than 40 years of uninterrupted classical musical programming. And that remains widely accessible through the 3 FM signals, live streaming, and a mobile app, as well as evolving digital platforms. Its commitment to broadening engagement with classical music is evident in both its programming and diversity, and its intentional efforts to challenge stereotypes. By featuring underrepresented composers and performers alongside established classical works, the organization creates a more inclusive artistic landscape that reflects a variety of cultural perspectives and experiences. A significant strength is the artistic programming, which featured one of the ones that featured was Arts Focus, which figures more than 150 artist interviews. They also have programs such as the syndicated Gateways Music Festival and With Heart and Voice, which demonstrated a great opportunity to be responsive to local audience interest and community feedback. The organization also demonstrated meaningful community engagement through initiatives such as annual instrument drives, which collected more than 1,000 instruments through through local business, through Grismer. That was great. The listeners, that also helped impact to support Dayton Public School programs and underprivileged students receiving instruments, which is nice. Listener feedback and adaptive programming strategies further illustrate that the organization's responsiveness and commitment to maintaining strong audience connection across generations and backgrounds. From an organizational capacity standpoint, the organization has demonstrated long-term financial responsibility and organizational and operational stability, maintaining debt-free status since 1999. While a fully detailed long-term strategic plan was not outlined, the organization provided measurable objectives and progress indicators that reflect thoughtful planning and sustained organizational awareness. And with their prior experience, I'm sure that they will give us a good projection for what we can expect to come. As digital engagement continues to grow, there is an opportunity to further improve accessibility and navigation of arts-focused content to enhance digital interaction and long-term sustainability. I think that was addressed through their opportunity of growth and development through other digital platforms, as well as archiving some of the music that has been played and stored throughout the organization. Overall, the organization demonstrates sustained artistic leadership, collaborative engagement, and a strong commitment to cultural accessibility, community connection, and organizational sustainability. The visit helped demonstrate the organization's connection to sustaining the culture of arts and the viability of the region by keeping its station based in the downtown area. I open the floor to my peers.
I wanted to mention a couple things that I learned when I visited there. The first thing is happy anniversary. They just had 40 years, so that's lovely. The second thing that I feel like an idiot I didn't know about is they used their radio station to promote other art things in the region. So we have a lot of art organizations here today that are like, how do we have better marketing? Part of that answer is talk to these people. Um, they also, and forgive me, I don't remember exactly if they're either the only or one of the very few 24/7 non-commercial music stations, period. Not in the Dayton region, period. So all of these are absolutely phenomenal. And I can recommend them personally when I'm trying to focus and get things done. They are my go-to station. So um, just my 2 cents there.
Yeah, to go after what you said, like even I really liked in their grant application that they actually quoted people, saying that that's the place they go to get away, from the realities of, right now, and they would just turn it on. And I really, really can't stress how much I enjoyed reading this application and the tour. I mean, I learned so much during the tour, of all that they do. I mean, it was just a pleasure to read this application, and they are doing a standout job. And I am really looking forward to their future because they shared the plans of their future move during the tour, and I am so excited about that.
Yeah, and in connection to that move, and this I believe is referenced in the application, but it is in future plans. In their new location, they are looking actually to expand their current services. So, all very promising going forward.
I agree, and I also appreciate the fact that they're thinking about the community and how they can expand the experience of the community and how it can be integrated. Because they were in the visit, they also talked about some of those development plans. Like I said, that's why I said we're not sure what those specific plans are, but I'm have full confidence that based on their history of being debt free and being able to apply and implement a sustainable plan over and over shows the growth of them.
I agree.
Good.
Uh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mary.
Um, their debt-free status and also their cost benefit analysis that they give to each thing and the long-term considerations that they're giving. And it just make a impressive combination of positives. I was originally concerned in my notes about outreach to non-listeners because so much of what they do addresses to listeners, but not to a broader community. But they're adding a staff member for marketing and communications, so that may very well help with that. And I was pleased to see that. Their mid-year figures are great. I mean, they show a positive revenue over expense for the period, and that always makes my heart happy.
Well, they also are a major partner with Stivers. So yes, they have a radio station, but they also reach out to local art schools to encourage artistic, young adults and encouraging their careers going forward, which absolutely fantastic.
And I think play on what Mary said, their financial statement is excellent. Their debt free is excellent. And they were able to generate nearly $2.5 million to finance this move. And based on the presentation that when we visited, that's going to turn out to be going to improve Main Street in downtown Dayton materially. And they'll be able to do all kinds of things with the performance spaces that they have there. So very impressed with Discover Classical.
Me too. I think it really speaks to the organizational leadership and structure that they have currently and what they have been able to implement over and over since the 80s, I believe, and how they are intentional with their programming and their planning. And I think that is evident in something that a listener stated, and this is a quote that said, all this is to say, I like you just the way you are. Knowledgeable announcers with understated presences, broad array of music, tolerable, necessary fundraisers, top 100 at the holidays, and the list goes on.
Amen.
Yeah. So kudos to Discover Classical for identifying and discovering over and over again how to um, how to implement art into the community and how to make it sustainable for themselves and for us to see. And I think that they could be a staple to help create some kind of structure for additional foundations and organizations moving forward, so we can understand like how to really be sustainable from a debt-free perspective.
Much like BCDC, they are known well beyond the Miami Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also really appreciate how much they openly are, who needs help, who needs a little extra assistance getting word out about a show they're doing or an art show or a dance or whatever. Um, Not only are they strong in the community, but they go out of their way to further support the community.
Their
With
donation of their side band to Easter Seals Goodwill was also impressive. I mean, that's something they just didn't need to do, but it extends their reach as well.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
I think they just do a good job of figuring out how to reinvent the wheel over and over again, and as well how to expand to the entire region, right? How do we reach not just the region, but the world? Because they have been able to build on their growth and their digital platform that now has, listeners. We heard from the visit that they have listeners, across the world.
Yeah.
24 hours, so that's really nice to be able to access right here in our city.
Well, and that's likely to continue to be the case. There's this push where people are really tired of having commercials every 4 seconds, and they're one of the few channels I know of where there's not commercials every 5 minutes. So,
yeah. And it all started from an idea of a bunch of guys coming together, a bunch of people coming together and saying, "Hey, we're going to donate a small amount," and that small amount created a big, a debt-free and sustainable organization to what we see today.
Thank you, everybody. Any final comments? Joy as primary reviewer and the last reviewer speaking, I believe. Anybody else want to add a final comment before we move into our lunch? No? Okay. Thank you to the panel and to everyone listening. We're about to take a 30-minute break. We will return promptly at 1:30 and we will have 2 applications left, one for the Co and one for Bach Society. Let's go ahead and take our 30-minute break. Panel, please stay in the room. Just mute yourself and turn your cameras off. And I will call you back at the appropriate time. Thank you, everybody. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the little delay there. Welcome back. We have two remaining organizations, and they will be reviewed in this order. First, the Co. Mary, you are the primary reader for that organization. And then the Bach Society and Tomiko, you are the primary for that. So I want to say welcome to the panel and welcome to all of the applicants and members of our community who are in the room with us today. Thank you for being here. This is the official 2026-2027 panel review for the Community Arts Grant that CultureWorks funds and administers. And with that, Mary, will you go ahead and get our conversation started for the Co? And I'm going to go ahead and add, like we're starting a little late, so we're going to add 5 minutes on, and not cut anybody short. So let's go ahead.
Thank you, Ren.
Thank you, Mary.
Founded in 1991, the Co. is a non-collecting contemporary art museum whose mission statement is to provide art with the whose mission statement is to provide art for the community and community for artists. It presents thought-provoking art from national and international artists while providing a platform for underrepresented artists. Community engagement strategies were were presented in a well-considered way in the application, in my mind. They targeted including diverse groups of artists, organizations, schools, and seniors with presentations that are inclusive, collaborative, and free. Another thing that I'd like to point out are strategies and the organizational ability, the diversity of planning and the planned financial strategies. Leveraging of current assets through rentals, professional development programs, rotating art programs for offices and individuals, and introducing each new venture. This is something that really appealed to me. Introducing each new venture as a scalable pilot program. Really resonated with me because it minimizes the potential for negative results and maximizes success and makes it possible to maximize successes. I found that their presentation was, again, well considered, well organized, and I appreciated all of that. It was articulate and comprehensive as well. On a more personal note, when I went to the visit, they had an artist who does art that I would never have considered being anything I could relate to. It was street art, and he gave me a perspective that was so thought-provoking. And I came away, I'm still thinking about it, and it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and for me, that's a long retention time. And I'm still, considering his points of view as opposed to anything that I had thought before. If their programs, if that's indicative of their programs and the diversity that they're bringing and the thought-provoking part of what they're presented for the community, I certainly applaud it. I'm comfortable that they did a very well organized presentation on their application, and that's about everything I have.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate it, especially comments about the visit. Let's go ahead and open it up to the floor for the panel to discuss, hitting on key points that you heard Mary articulate, but also adding to the conversation with your own observations of strengths of the applications or areas for improvement.
I'll just make one small comment. It did read really strong. There was a lot of good information in here. What I was missing is a little bit of like the data or the metrics that actually measure their impact, I should say. So maybe in the next application, I know they have a lot of strategies in here. So maybe just put them together and have it on a sheet. So that would make the application stronger, in my opinion, is to have that.
I think I would acknowledge that the evaluation tool was a good source to help identify some things, but I think it could be a little more thought out in how the programming impacts the audience and what the program is doing. I would like to highlight their ability to implement a collaborative structure in their programming through the relationship development of our sister city in Detroit. I think that's something that sometimes we hear, but to actually see visual representation, especially through art, and how that it truly impacts the community, I think was a great way to highlight the community results in the community arts and how it impacts the community arts.
I can actually piggyback off that. One of the things that I really like about the CO is they fill a hole that's not really filled by a lot of other organizations. Their big role is to bring in not only attention to local artists, but also major and notable artists from other places. Now, this is good for them because, hey, big name artists, but this is also good for the region because that allows non-co organizations to have a door through which to build relationships with Detroit and Cincinnati and Chicago and New York and wherever these other artists come from. And that is key. You know, we talk about local Dayton community arts, but arts is not a local Dayton community thing. It is a regional, it is a statewide, it is a national, it's an international thing. And by bringing in these artists from these various locations, they are facilitating that being possible. So I love that they have local artists as well, of course, but there's real power in these names that they bring into our area.
I agree. I think it also speaks to the cultural development within the community here, because they talked about the in small measure exhibition, and I thought that was a great way to highlight and exhibit local artists as well as professional emerging art, professional and emerging artists. It really appealed to artists of all genres as well as to the public and made art accessible for the public to buy because art does appreciate, and so it gives people an opportunity to take a step into appreciate not just appreciating the art from a visual perspective, but from a financial perspective and supporting the artist as well as supporting their own cultural growth in becoming maybe a collector.
Well, and that particular show is brilliant for a number of reasons. One, this is a gallery that regularly shows national and international artists. And in this particular show, you know, Susie, housewife down the street, could paint a postcard and have it in a gallery next to some of the biggest names in art, period. And, you know, this was a public space. The art was purchasable and really quite affordable. And it made the entire thing not only accessible, but inclusive. It just checked a lot of boxes.
I agree. And it also had I think it also engaged a lot of the region. Like you said, it engaged people internationally, like, sorry,
Yeah.
nationally, as well as regionally. And it really embodied their ability to accept and influence that idea of art being accessible for all and to all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you that that fundraiser or the exhibition was a big departure from their past, and I like the direction that they're going in. Just reading the plans for the future look solid. So with the increased revenue streams and stuff, I was really impressed with that. So, and Mary brought that up in her opening statement.
Well, the and I told myself I wouldn't go too much in the weeds with history with this. The co was a kind of a continuation from a number of earlier organizations, so on and so forth. That's a whole lecture. Tamika will be there. Um, but this is a pattern that Dayton's been trying to figure out for a long time. And it's an important pattern because we can have as many brilliant artists as we like locally, but if we don't export them or share them or make them known to people, it kind of defeats the purpose. And organizations leading up to and including the co are kind of our mechanism to do that. So it's a really important, but also really tricky job. And that they are, figuring things out as they go is frankly fantastic, not only for them, but for the region generally.
And accomplishing that, my one observation is that for a very small organization, they have a very impressive leadership based on their bios.
Yeah, I think that they did a great job of taking the feedback of what needed to be done to help impact them culturally and structurally as an organization, and they were able to like really expand on that through this application. And I think that like just some example, like a clear example of their balance was through the development of the creative enterprise initiatives that they had through the art-based corporate workshops and curatorial services. I think also be interesting to see continued development in those ideas as we continue to see corporate structures and artistic structures collaborate, and how artists and businesses can work together to continue to promote the arts within the community.
That's one of,
Please
go
go
ahead.
on. No.
That's one of the reasons that I was so impressed with the rotating office art program. I thought, oh, it's very innovative, and it gives them access to a different community.
I agree. I thought it was just a great example of how a business and an arts organization operates as an arts organization as well as a business liaison for arts and for artists.
It's a challenge not dissimilar to the one that the DEI faces, where this is an organization that simultaneously has responsibility to local artists and to artists originating from outside the region, and has to balance, the place where how do you embrace the one and endorse the other and keep that in a reasonable measure. Again, I don't say this out of I'm smarter than them. This is a hard job they're doing. So figuring this out is something I have great respect for.
Any other comments you all for the co on the application or your site visits?
And just a finance observation again that they documented a shortcoming in projected fundraising events and membership income. That's troubling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this is not their fault. I mean, the timing of things is always interesting. But their evaluation tool is currently a draft. If there's one recommendation I would put forward, it's, there's a number of organizations we've seen today who do really, really good evaluation tools. We talk about collaboration, maybe reach out and see what people can teach each other. Because, it's a draft and I understand that, but it does need to be improved.
Okay. Thank you to each of you for that one. Let's take a minute here to go ahead and make any notes on new ideas or new thoughts that you have on this application, so that you can think it through a little more completely when it comes time to submit the final score. And let's also prepare for a shift in focus toward the Bach Society. So a quiet minute here to wrap up one and turn your focus to the next. And let us begin with the Bach. Could you tell from that little note that I'm not in the Bach Society? Hopefully the Bach Society is laughing at that and not considering it cruel mimicry of their art form. If Tomiko, you are the primary reviewer. If you
I made a funny face. Like I felt it.
Bach Society is our final application today, so I know we're either a little slap happy or a little comatose from the lunch hour or lunch 30 minutes. But let's regroup and refocus and give them a true review. And Tomiko, if you could start us off with your thoughts on the application from the Bach Society.
I'll just again read from my notes, but I'm going to review the Bach Society and I'll read just a little statement from their application. Timeless music, passionate voices. Since 2002, the Bach Society of Dayton has been guided by these two principles and its vision to lift the human spirit through the power of voice. Our mission is to perform and promote an appreciation of choral music, both sacred and secular, especially the timeless works of Johann Sebastian Bach.
Mm-hmm.
So I typed out a long strength and weaknesses. I'll go ahead and read it. I might skip over some, but what I have written on here, just to clarify that I found really important, was that the strengths was their collaborations with other organizations and the no debt. So those were very standout qualities, major ones. So, but I'll go on. The main strength of this application is its overall organizational stability and clarity of mission. The Bach Society presents itself as a mature, well-run organization with strong artistic leadership, clear strategic planning, responsible financial oversight, and a long-standing presence in the community. I'll skip around. The Young Composers Contest, a collaboration with Dayton Contemporary Dance Company and regional partners, live stream accessibility, that's a big one, and Discover Classical rebroadcasts and expansion into Troy are all strengths. So yeah, the live stream and working with Discover Classical, those are huge. That impacts their audience like greatly. So another major strength is that the organization understands its identity. Oh, sorry about that. Let's see. It's attached to my computer. Sorry about that. Another major strength is that the organization understands its identity very clearly. The application never feels unfocused or overly ambitious. The programming, evaluation methods, sustainability planning, and audience strategies all align well with the organization's mission and operational capacity. Then I go on to state that live streaming and the radio rebroadcasts are particularly strong for this organization because they deal with classical, but they still are being innovative with the technology. So I took that very well. The weaknesses that I found is not the quality, but it was more of how they measured it. So I think there needs to be a little more data to back up some of the claims. Some of the claims were just overarching. Let's see. While the organization clearly values community engagement and implemented meaningful, accessible initiatives, including live streaming again, and I really like the discounted tickets and the childcare. But sections rely more on aspirational language than documented metrics. So overall, the strengths of the application significantly outweigh the weaknesses. This reads as a strong, experienced organization with clear artistic value, responsible leadership, meaningful partnerships, and a demonstrated ability to sustain and grow programming over time. So that's about it. I noticed in their application that they are going to do a new strategic plan like coming up. So good for them. They're doing good. That's it.
There are two things I want to just mention right away. The first is that their diagnostic tool for feedback also deserves a pat on the back on and a sandwich. That was really nice. The second, and I'm putting my nerd hat on for this one, but I actually study what Dayton orchestras have performed since the 18th and 19th centuries. And when they say they're using classical works of Dayton, they're not kidding. I recognize several pieces that were played in 1830 and 1840 and 1850 that they're now playing today. So they're not lying when they say they're continuing that tradition.
I value having your historical knowledge in the panel, Kathleen. No, I really do. Um, I mean, I'm PhD in 16th and 17th century literature, and so I feel like a big nerd a lot of the time as well. But I actually really value that your historical knowledge is focused on Dayton. It's been really helpful throughout the conversation. So I just want to say huzzah. And
Well, I'm
thank
glad
you for joining the panel. Yeah,
I'm
no,
glad my obsession could be helpful to you.
it's just an interesting new kind of highlight on what I think all of us in the room are able to perceive. And that's why I like to have a diverse range of people on a panel, but it's the first time I've had an arts historian on the panel. So this has been a learning experience for me, and I'm glad that you joined us. So sorry for my interruption. Yeah. Please, continue your discussion as a panel on the Bach Society's application. From
I will say that the childcare is huge because a lot of times what's stopping people especially when they have kids is, we can't go anywhere. Well, now you can. And they are also taking full advantage of Discover Classical, which if there's one recommendation I would give to everyone interviewing today, it would be to do that. So far as I can tell, it doesn't cost anything and their reach is remarkable. But I was impressed by them. I truly was. Also, the show that, as you know, I was not able to go to because we had a pet emergency. But exploring and featuring, an extended range of cultures. Forgive me, I'm an anthropologist. We need about 100 times more than that than we have. Um, we need as much cultural exploration as we can get right now because there's such a force that, there is only one, and this is America. There's never only been one culture.
I do agree with you. I can't appreciate it was obvious that they were able to take the cultural feedback and diversity and implement that through the programming of like the Cante Bella. That was a really nice experience to have. I think that it remains a interesting observation of representation of all cultures. And I think sometimes if there is not representation within culture, then it is not all necessarily an authentic representation. And so I think that there is encouragement in understanding like the feedback that is presented to the audience to get the type of programming, continued programming and diversity that is looked for. Yeah, I just think it's important to identify what type of, I think that the information, the data of like who that audience is and how that information is being presented to the audience is helpful in identifying how the programming is perceived culturally. I think that through the collaborative efforts of multiple organizations and their ability to collaborate within the organization gives them a great advantage on how the art is received when you are present. But as a person of another culture, it is interesting to see the lack of cultural diversity within the program itself.
A challenge for sure.
Their origins are in the context of classical music. What I read about their programs, and one program they attended here a few weeks ago, is much more eclectic than that. It's a piece of their program will be something out of their classical repertoire, but or something new that they've added, but from a classical context. And then they'll have contemporary stuff. I mean, they have the Adventist bell ringers, participating in their Christmas concert. So uh, they're I think that's just very interesting. I wasn't. I mean, first I've attended one of their shows, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I appreciated their the little lecture before to give context to the whole presentation that was going to come after it put everything into context. It was a nice touch. So yeah, I really enjoyed it myself too.
See, what I find wonderful about this is the lecture and the public show and working with the churches and organizations. This is what orchestras and choirs and whatnot in Dayton have been almost since our founding. If you go into the archives room at the Dayton room at Dayton Metro, you'll see records of this. So not only is it a really great program, but it's a kind of signature Daytonian experience.
First time I've been in their venue at the Adventist Church, which was
Yeah.
a really. I'd love to hear somebody play that organ.
Hmm.
The strategic document plan I found impressive. Given that its term is ending, I would have appreciated a brief overview of where their results are now versus that plan. And there were a couple of other more data-driven things, being a numbers person, that I looked for or I didn't find, and I think would have been helpful. Has attendance grown year over year? Are requests for the engagements of the event choir increasing? Because I think that's a great outreach program. Where do those, how does one even get onto the list for potentially having a presentation by the event group? And I'd like more information even on the composers competition because I find it fascinating. I think it's a great thing. Um, how do they solicit entrance?
Yeah.
I guess I think that was all of them, but I just, again, being a data person, I looked for those things and they would have helped me as a reader.
Kind of pin it down.
No, is that data that's still being collated, or was that just not admitted, because it could be that they're working on putting that together, but they had the grant due sooner rather than later, so it wasn't able to be included, and so on and so forth.
Entirely possible.
I thought just in the context of their strategy for strengthening the donor engagement, audience growth, and so forth, that they explicitly identified what they characterize as artistic risk and financial risk.
Good.
I think some of the conversations we've had today, that distinction would be useful for introduction to some other organizations thinking. Financial risk we've been talking about, but the artistic risk is if you go out on a limb somewhere with new material, a new performance context or concept, is that going to blow up your audience? I mean, are people who are interested in your classical music background going to be turned off and just go home or stay home? And that they explicitly addressed that, I thought was very good.
I think one of the things that I've never considered before that comment, David, is that in a lot of cases, they have one opportunity to make an impact because somebody comes to that one performance and may never come again. And if it's not what they expect, yes, that's very on target.
I would agree. I would agree with what you guys are saying completely. And I think it's definitely a challenge in identifying how to address all the challenges that an organization is faced with, right? Particularly when it comes to some things that they know and are aware of for the challenges referring to themselves as well as within the community. But I think highlighting to what David was saying, in the there was a piece in the organizational sustainability where they said that that they are aware of their strategies and these strategies are implemented to ensure that the Bach Society of Dayton continues to grow in audience reach, artistic participation, and financial resilience, securing its long-term future as a regional cultural asset. So I think they have a very good balance and understanding of who their audience is, how to entertain and how to reach that audience. And again, the growth is just, the opportunities continue to learn to, the opportunity is continuing to be sustainable and growing as an organization and reaching the impact within the community that they're trying to do.
They're also reaching over the horizon to take their performance to where they go to Troy.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was, yeah.
That was a good-
So that's out in the cornfields.
I think it speaks to their ability to just like you said, just try to reach all the communities within the regions that we do serve. So shout out to them for their ability to expand on some cultural diversities.
And something to keep in mind with all these applications, we're in quickly shifting times. So a lot of these people are kind of trying to piece out what works and what doesn't work, and it is inherent in experimentation. I'm talking to artists. I don't need to tell you this, that when you experiment, not every experiment is going to work out. But the point is that you keep trying, and maybe this will work, maybe that will work. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's an honest effort, that's fair game.
Thank you, everyone. We are officially out of time for our final application discussion. We are now going to move into a closed session. So for those applicants in the room and community members, if you could please exit. Thank you for being here, and please watch for an email from me within the next couple weeks, this week or next at the latest. Just kind of updating you on where we're at in the process and what to expect moving forward. So thank you to everyone, and we will see you again soon.
We all sit and look at one another.
Okay. I just had to remove them, that's all. I'm going to stop our recording.